Hello, this is Matthew Robert Payne, and this is Visiting Elijah in Heaven. Um, the image I got as I was preparing my coffee um, is I got an image, first of all, of a tennis court, and there was a couple of tennis courts there. Then I saw a swimming pool, and I saw in the corner of the swimming pool a spa. And so it looks like Elijah likes playing tennis and having spas and swimming in the swimming pool. They're all outside his house. His house is 3 stories, and um, looks like he enjoys himself. And I imagine, or what I sense in heaven, is everything in heaven is to be shared. It's not as though you play tennis by yourself. You play tennis with someone opposing, and sometimes you play doubles tennis. So there's 4 people on a court, and there's 2 courts there, so there'd be 8 people playing, or 4 people playing if they're playing singles. The pool looks like it'd have a number of people in it, and the spa is big enough to have a number of people. The spa was half the size of the pool. You could fit about 20 people in the spa. So that's just an outdoor setting. Outdoor setting, also there's a table and chairs for about 40 people under an awning. If you go in there, it's similar to the other house. There's a commercial kitchen which serves, which you just come out the sliding doors, and you can serve the table of 40. Looks like he's used to having guests there. So let's look at the outside of his house. There's not many houses on earth that have 2 tennis courts and a swimming pool and a spa, and they're just the outside of his house. And his house is 3 stories, and it's a mansion, and so that's what Elijah's house looks like, a little bit of what his house looks like. Always have to look over here to get my questions. What are you doing in heaven? So Elijah speaks. I run, mainly what I do is I run prophetic councils. There's councils in heaven, which is a group of prophetic people, group of leaders, prophetic people who meet and discuss and make declarations and prophesy over the future of heaven and the future of earth. I meet often with prophets that come from earth, and they translate to heaven, and they meet on these prophetic councils where half the people in the council are people in heaven, and half of the people on the council are people from earth. And Matthew's aware of certain saints that are caught up and meet in these councils. Matthew had a book where he was being part of a council. My Visits to the Galactic Council is a book that Matthew was involved in, a council in heaven. So I run those. I sit on quite a number of councils, and with Enoch in Enoch's lecture hall, I coach prophets and teach prophets, and we have the School of Prophets. So I'm heavily involved in the life of prophets. I'm going to join Enoch and come and visit Earth and be one of the two witnesses mentioned in Revelation 11, Revelation chapter 11. So me and Enoch are going to come and judge the world with fire. And so I like my job. I like training prophetic people and teaching prophetic people. I'm pleased to announce that I've spent some time with your father, Matthew, and he's very hungry for the Lord. Now he's very hungry for the kingdom, and I've seen the first 2 chapters of his book on the parables, and he's done a remarkable job. And your book on the parables really helped him. And what's beautiful about heaven is there's no distractions for people with finances and jobs and incomes and bills and worries of the world. And so they can be fully invested in learning about the kingdom. And if you're writing a book like Bob is, that is your full-time job. And Bob is becoming a writer. And so you don't have to work in a restaurant in heaven, or be a florist in heaven, or be a butcher in heaven. You could be a writer in heaven and be reading books and doing research and writing a book. And that's what Bob, Matthew's father, is doing. He's training to be a prophet, and he's becoming a writer. And what's so good about heaven is you invest in people, you invest your time in people, and you see the fruit of that. You see the reward that comes from that. And I so enjoy mentoring young prophets. And I call them young because they've only been in heaven for 20 or 30 years. And I've been in heaven for thousands. And I enjoy mentoring the younger guys and girls. Please excuse us for mentioning that we're counseling prophets and teaching prophets, and please excuse us if we don't mention women. It's not by design. There's prophetesses involved in our groups, and we're training prophetesses. Joshua only had 10 boys that he was training up. He didn't have girls there. Boys can get distracted with girls, even in heaven. And so there'd be a house similar to Joshua's where it's only girls that are there. So it's nothing that's been designed throughout these books, only talking about men. But I just thought I'd mention it there. So because Matthew's a male, he thinks like a male, and he assumes most things are males. But in the prophets that we're training, there's females involved. and I hope you're happy about that. So I train up these prophets, and we have plenty of prophetic exercises and jobs to do. Uh, certain prophets come up with prophetic words over the nations, over different nations on earth, and the Father releases those prophetic words through prophets, and a prophet on earth speaks according to what he feels the Father has given him, but he's actually prophesying what a prophet in heaven has prophesied over that country. So the source for the prophet on earth assumes it's God, but the source has been the Holy Spirit has given the prophet in heaven a prophetic word, and the prophetic word has gone to God, and the person has sourced that from God, but it's been a prophecy from one of the prophets in heaven. So musicians in heaven create songs, and musicians on earth get inspired by songs, get inspiration for songs, but their inspiration comes from a song that's already been recorded in heaven, and they make up a song on earth. And so heaven interacts with earth more than people realize, and many prophecies going forth on earth are coming from prophets in heaven. And we in some of the prophetic councils, we release prophetic words to the prophets, and the prophets speak on earth. The prophets in the prophetic council caught up in heaven speak the prophetic words that were heard in heaven onto the earth. So the prophetic is a powerful thing. It's a powerful source of information that can be used to lead people and guide people and direct people and establish people in who they are meant to be on earth. What do you like about heaven? I like the freedom of heaven. Heaven is so free. I imagine that you can't fully realize what heaven is like unless you've lived in heaven. When you're living on earth with bills and constraints and incomes and tax and inflation and the cost of living, you can't really consider what life would be like if nothing costed money, if there was no expense for things. Even if you're getting your money for nothing, like Matthew collects a disability income from his government, there's still pressure to pay bills, and there's stress on earth. And in heaven, there's none of that stress. So it creates a tremendous freedom. Jesus said, you can't serve two masters. Either you'll love one and despise the other one, or despise one and love the other. He said you can't serve God and mammon, and God and money. And so in heaven, the other God, money, is taken away. There's no competition for God in heaven. The whole of heaven is focused on God. It's not focused on money. So money's been totally stripped away, which creates a freedom in people. People aren't in bondage to Egypt. The people of the earth are in bondage to money. And there's very little freedom on earth. And what I love about heaven is People are free to be themselves. They're free to learn. They're free to chase down things that they're interested in. They're free to express their lives how they choose to. They're free to pursue any vocation that they feel. They're not free to do nothing. Like, there's no laziness in heaven. No one's being lazy. No one's doing nothing with their time. Everyone in heaven is contributing to the greater good. Everyone's role in heaven impacts other people and helps other people. And I love the rewards in heaven. I love the competition in heaven, and the rewards that are part of heaven. I get rewarded for the fruit that people bear, that I teach and I instruct. The fruit that comes from their lives, the fruit of their ministries, reflects on me, and I get rewards in heaven for that. And God is such a generous rewarder of people who place their trust in him. And heaven is just another place. It's just a place to really look forward to coming to. I'm really pleased Matthew has decided to do this series of books, because it's really a good description of what heaven is like. And if you read these books in the series, and there's a few more books coming, you'll get a really good picture of heaven. Heaven has no limits. There's no hindrances in heaven. You can achieve what you can dream. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. And some people arrive in heaven and they've got little faith, and they've been beaten up with their image of God, and they've been angry at God. They've had a hard life, and they've resented God, and they were bitter with God, and they arrive in heaven. And it takes a while, it takes a few years to heal that bitterness and to heal that resentment. And they've got to come to know that God is a rewarder, and God is faithful and kind and just. And they've got to see God for who he is. And then they start to change, and they become hungry for the things of God. They seek out God, and they draw close to God. And then they start to dream. They start with little dreams, like becoming a chef, and they become a chef. And then they get their own restaurant, and the restaurant starts winning awards. And then they may franchise their restaurant and have duplicate restaurants. And some of the other franchise restaurants start to win awards. And they grow slowly in their faith, that they believe that they can do better and better. And the more they dream, the more they achieve. These are all the wonderful things about heaven. Heaven is built for mankind, and one day on earth, there's going to be an earth like heaven. There's going to be people living in nice houses, and there's going to be no expense. There's going to be no income. There's going to be no money. There's going to be a chance for you to own anything you like, and everyone do a job. And the more you hear about heaven in these books, the more you can have an idea of what the future earth is going to be like. And they try and emulate this earth with communism. Communism tries to make heaven on earth, but men are involved, and whenever men are involved, there's corruption. Unless Jesus is ruling on earth with an iron fist, it won't be possible. But heaven is a remarkable place, and there's some of the things I like about heaven. I love the freedom. The heaven is just so free, and I didn't live with much bondage in my life, but I certainly got really scared with Jezebel's threat and ran away from Jezebel when she threatened me, and I wanted to die. I wanted to be taken home early, and God had mercy on me and did take me home early. But that just means I've got a life part 2 where I've got to come back to earth and be killed on earth as when I finish my work on earth, I'll be overcome by the Antichrist. But I'll achieve what I have to achieve in those years, and the earth will be scared of me. And so in those days, like Enoch says, be hundreds of saints in heaven traveling with us and working with us and working with the saints on earth that will be working with us. And each of the saints on earth, part of the 144,000, will have mentors that they'll be working with from heaven. And it'll be a company of people on earth and a company of people from heaven. So you've got that to look forward to on earth in the future. What is your message for us? Be true to yourself. You know what's right. You know what's the best. You understand what righteousness is. You understand what holiness is. Some of you struggle with sin. Some of you struggle with habits and ways of life that aren't pleasing to God. But through all of it, be true to yourself. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't profess Jesus and not live Jesus. Don't profess to be a believer in Jesus when you don't believe him. Don't walk away from your faith. I'm not saying to do that, but invest in yourself, invest in your faith, learn what to do, learn how to live, and be true to yourself. Be genuine, be honest, be transparent with your life, and let your light shine for other people. Let people see Jesus in you. Let people experience Jesus in you. And there's a way to develop the mind of Christ. You can develop the mind of Christ through understanding what Jesus taught and practicing what Jesus taught. And we've already discussed that in these books, so we won't continue with that. But you need to develop the mind of Christ, the ability to think like Christ thinks, and the ability to process information the way that Jesus would process information. There's a way that is true and right. There's a way that Jesus would approach every situation, and it's the way that Jesus would behave in every situation. And you want to reach a stage where you're behaving like Jesus in every situation. And that's not to gossip. That's not to take revenge. That's not to pray prayers that someone be taken out of a job or someone be disciplined by God. That's praying for a person's welfare and lifting them up. And if they're an enemy, that's giving them gifts and blessing them financially. Um, that's taking a person's shift at work who's an enemy and volunteering to fill in their shift for them when they can't make it. That's going out of your way to bless your enemy. It's time to be true to your faith. It's time to be true to the discipline of being Christ-like. It's time to destroy your flesh. It's time to put down the flesh and make a decision each day, make multiple decisions each day, the way that the Holy Spirit wants you to make the decisions. It's time to learn how to walk in the Holy Spirit, how to be directed by the Holy Spirit each day in your life. It's time not to just be an ordinary Christian. It's time to walk just as Jesus walked. It's time for you not to be a Christian in name only, but it's time for you to be a Christian in action. And it's time not to just read these books and say, well, that was a nice book. It's time to get your highlighter out and highlight and put into practice what's been taught in this book. It's time to highlight each of the books that are mentioned in this book, and it's time to go and read those books and apply those books in your life. It's time to be real, folks. It's time to wake up and smell the coffee. It's time for you to change your life. And Matthew speaks so much of this out of experience. That's why he's a good vehicle to speak these messages, because he's living what he's teaching. And someone had to live it. Someone had to make it possible. Someone had to live a life like Jesus. And you can too. And we encourage you to go after the books and read the books and apply the books. It's important that you don't just read the resources, but you practice the resources and put them into practice. So I hope you enjoyed my interview. Most of you will come home in the rapture and you won't see me on earth doing the job of the two witnesses. But you'll hear from it about heaven. You'll see us doing our work from heaven. So pray for your relatives and pray for your friends that they may be counted worthy to go home in the rapture. God bless.